Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is planning to flee to Russia, following in the footsteps of Assad and Yanukovych, and the United States authorities are ready to ensure his safety for a successful escape from the country. The Donald Trump administration is discussing a scenario in which Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro would be allowed to step down from power and leave the country, agreeing to voluntary exile in Russia. Americans say they'll provide a corridor so you can safely fly out and live in Russia. Today, Trump announced he's ready to negotiate with Maduro after deploying the largest aircraft carrier near Venezuela. Trump stated that the authorities in Caracas themselves requested negotiations with Washington to discuss delicate issues. It is noteworthy that a day before this, a United States Navy carrier strike group led by the largest aircraft carrier, United States S. Gerald Ford, entered the Caribbean Sea. Well, before that, the head of the Pentagon, Pechiy, announced the start of a military attack called Operation Southern Spear against narco-terrorists in western Balusharia. Most forces are now concentrated near Venezuela. Maduro himself tried in vain the day before to urge Americans to stand against Trump's plans and oppose the war. It didn't work, and now more and more sources indicate that Maduro is indeed ready to flee to Russia. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and write any detailed comment under this episode. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. Use any format you prefer. I appreciate any support you can offer. And you can also use the QR code on your screens. So, in Donald Trump's administration, there's a scenario being discussed where the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, would get the green light to step down from power and quietly leave the country, citing voluntary exile to Russia. White House officials told this to Politico. They state that if Maduro agrees to go to Russia, they will give him a plane, a corridor, and safe passage. That's it. Let him fly away. We won't touch him, even though we've actually announced a $50 million reward for his head. Sources say exile for Maduro is being considered not only in Russia, but also in Turkey or Cuba. Meanwhile, some aides to the American president propose arresting the Venezuelan leader and trying him in the United States instead of letting him go. Earlier, sources from The Atlantic who are negotiating with representatives of Venezuela and the United States reported that Maduro might be ready to resign. If Washington grants him and his closest associates amnesty, cancels the reward for his capture, and ensures a comfortable exile. And today, Trump announced that the United States may soon hold talks with the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. Quote, "They would like to talk, we'll see what comes of it." A day before that, let me remind you, a United States Navy carrier strike group led by the largest aircraft carrier, Gerald Ford, entered the Caribbean Sea. I want to emphasize there are over 4,000 military personnel plus dozens of strike fighters and combat helicopters on this ship. There's a large concentration of ships, fighters, bombers, and landing forces in the region. Puerto Rico has also reopened a military base. That is, the concentration of troops is really very serious. Earlier, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth announced the start of Operation Southern Spear against, as he said, narco-terrorists in the Western Hemisphere. At the same time, the United States of America decided to add the Venezuelan drug cartel Los Soles to the list of foreign terrorist organizations, which Washington directly links to Maduro. They openly say that Maduro is the head of this drug cartel. The United States State Department clarified that the decision will take effect on November 24. So Maduro has very little time. This expands the legal grounds for more aggressive actions. Congress's approval won't be needed to conduct military operations in Venezuela. In addition, according to Reuters, last week senior officials from the Trump administration held 3 meetings at the White House where they considered options for a possible military operation against Venezuela, including strikes on the country's territory. In August, let me remind you, Trump signed a secret directive that allowed the Pentagon to use military force against Latin American drug cartels. After that, the United States Navy sank more than 20 Venezuelan vessels with, as they say, narco-terrorists in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. According to the Wall Street Journal, in a secret memorandum from the United States Department of Justice, the strikes were justified by the claim that the synthetic opioid fentanyl could be used as a chemical weapon. Accordingly, if this is a chemical weapon, it becomes a matter of national security, and therefore the Americans are absolutely justified in carrying out strikes. The Venezuelan authorities, in turn, believe that the United States is using the fight against drug trafficking as a pretext to start a war. Nicolas Maduro publicly addressed Trump and urged him not to start an armed conflict. At the same time, according to sources from The Atlantic, the leader of Venezuela is ready to resign if the United States grants him and his closest associates amnesty, security guarantees, and ensures a comfortable exile. Representatives of the American administration, who have already discussed the policy, say that Washington may allow Maduro and his associates to leave for Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, or Cuba. Some in the White House support arresting Maduro and extraditing him to the United States for trial. At least that's what Marco Rubio always says. He insists on this scenario. In addition, let me remind you that when faced with United States military pressure, Maduro publicly addressed Trump and urged him not to start a war. But obviously all these persuasions didn't work. If Maduro goes into exile in Russia, he will join the ranks of foreign leaders who couldn't hold on to power and were forced to seek asylum in Moscow. All these leaders were once supported by Moscow. In 2014, as a result of the Revolution of Dignity, the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych fled Ukraine. After that, he settled in an elite village on Rubliovka. At the end of 2024, the president of Syria, Bashar Assad, who lost power after Syrian rebels captured Damascus, moved to Russia. And so he could settle in the elite district of the Russian capital, Moscow City, where his relatives own real estate. And here to the Russians as well. Before the escalation of relations with the United States, Maduro, let me remind you, signed a strategic partnership agreement with Russia. He did this on the birthday of the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, on October 7th. Among other things, the agreement touches on issues of global and regional security. But Russia itself is now keeping silent and isn't particularly eager to help Maduro's regime. One conclusion can be drawn from this whole story. Trump has escalated the situation to the maximum in order to force Maduro to step down voluntarily. Moreover, the United States is even ready to guarantee that Maduro will be allowed to leave the country alive. Trump has long had his own appointees in Venezuela. This is the opposition led by Machado, who, by the way, received the Nobel Peace Prize this year and is actively friendly with the White House. Let me remind you, she's very friendly with Trump and said she would share the prize with him. And that's why now Trump is ready to negotiate with the Maduro regime. But clearly not about how they can coexist, but about how Maduro can leave in the safest way possible for him. Because, let me remind you, at the beginning of October, when Maduro made a mistake, he signed an agreement with the Russians. He offered Donald Trump a mega deal for privileged United States access to Venezuela's mineral resources, but Trump refused the deal. And he hinted that we would get access to these mineral resources anyway. But without you. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care, goodbye, more to come.